Hey, this is Daniel Davis. This is not part of the course requirements, but this is our chapter reviews. And instead of doing the papers that we handed in class and just kind of talk over through there, so I thought I would do a video to kind of cover what the chapters talk about, maybe a little bit different, but I could send it out before class, kind of get the discussions kind of flowing during class maybe and limit the time that we have to spend on them at that time. So to jump in, the first chapter that I went over was chapter 4. And what it mainly talks about is it talks about using perceptions data or perceptual data. And instead of trying to explain what that is, I mean, most of the things you're looking at is trying to determine what type of climate, culture, values that you have within your organization and the data that goes with it. We look at questions you might be asking. Why do we do what we do? Why do we exist? Where are we right now? Where are we headed? Where would we like to go? And this could be not just on the educational front, of course. This is in the corporate world, businesses, craft. Where does Kraft Cheese want to be? Why do they do what they do? And how you find out these things, and what the chapter really talks about and dives into, is questionnaires. And the purpose of a questionnaire is to find out what people actually think, or what gathering information or data, some of that perceptual data that you need to improve your organization, or to improve your classroom, or to improve student learning. And obviously that would be the focus on our end, or to improve spending in a budget. Several different items and ways that you can use this. And so the chapter talks about developing a questionnaire using that perceptual data. And to kind of jump to the questionnaire side of it, you have to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Like anything that you would ever submit, you can't just do it once and expect it to be good. When you're developing a questionnaire, you're looking for liable responses. You're looking for things that can actually help you. So when you develop a questionnaire, you first have to make sure that you're asking the right questions. And the book talks about how you can develop them using focus groups, using a friend, using peer reviews. Just like if you were to submit a paper, like for instance for this class, you would probably want somebody to proofread it to make sure that you didn't make a mistake. Well, in developing your questionnaires, you want somebody to look over it to say, hey, that's a great question, but are you going to get the responses you may be looking for? Not the ones that you want to get, because that's not the purpose. You're not baiting. You're not trying to get a selected response. When you're asking a questionnaire, you're trying to see what people actually say. And so when you do that, you're trying to make sure you develop your question to get meaningful responses that you can use, meaningful data to develop whatever it is you're working towards. So you want someone else to kind of check it. And when you're doing a questionnaire, you may go through several versions of it. And then you get a small group, a focus group, a community meeting to kind of get some general topics on what you may even want to ask your questions about. So chapter 4 really hits on that questionnaire side of things and helps you better understand, why are you doing what you're doing? Is what you're doing working? And if it is, why is it working well? And you can develop questions, you can develop answers from those questions to help you move forward in whatever endeavor it is. In education, that may be, was Common Core helping us? They weren't sure. They developed questionnaires. They asked educators, administrators, teachers, parents on their thoughts. They had very precise and meaningful questions to get our responses, to kind of develop, okay, this is what we feel is working, this is what the census is saying, this is what we got from the questionnaire. And that kind of helped them to decide, hey, this wasn't working for our students, so they got rid of it. Now, obviously, there's still principles that are still evident from Common Core that we're still using as far as the Missouri standards go. But every company that you can think of uses some form of this perceptual data to gather information and use it moving forwards. Hey, as we jump in here to chapter 5, we are looking at student learning data. And the biggest focus and questions that we're looking at are, what are we doing? So what are our processes? And then we're also looking at how did we get here, and is it working? And if it's not, how can we make it better? And one of the biggest areas that we can do this from, and we can draw from, is using the data that we gather on our students. There's several different ways that we gather this data, from pre-assessments to post-assessments, summative, formative. All of those things can gather data for us, meaningful data, to help enrich our students' learning. But instead of kind of going through what the book says, I thought I would bring in an actual teacher to kind of explain firsthand how it is used in the classroom, because a lot of times we just read that word on the paper and it kind of overwhelm us. So I thought I'd bring in a real life experience. This is Kaya Davis. She's a 3rd grade teacher here at Orchard Hills. And Mrs. Davis, I wanted to just ask, how do you use data, or how does data form what you do in the classroom? Like, kind of walk us through at the beginning of the year, maybe even, how do you use it in your classroom?
Okay, so at the beginning of the year, we do our district-wide assessments, our NWEA assessment and our DRA assessment, and both of those cover reading, and the NWEA covers math as well. So basically for reading, for example, I will find out where the kid is, and that will help form what type of lessons need to be in small group for our guided reading, or even in small group in math too. And then we use, when we're in our small group, we use our data for like running records and their comprehension strategies, all of that. And then we just continue to form our lessons based on that.
Okay, so, and you form your lessons on that, and if things aren't working, if you notice that it's not making a difference, do you use the data to change that?
Yeah, we'll go back and we will fix what needs to be fixed, definitely.
Okay, so, I mean, as you see, I mean, we can use data for a lot of variety of ways. This is a third grade teacher. There are art teachers who use it. I use it in the PE classroom just to kind of drive what we do as far as their fitness principles. And are they getting better? Are they able to do more push-ups in December than they were in August? So data-driven research and data-driven backgrounds, is something that we can use to kind of help guide our student learning. It's a very important tool and a great source for enriching what our kids do in the classroom, helping our school grow. So we're going to move into Chapter 6 next. Ms. Davis, thank you so much for joining us on this. I surely appreciate it. As we're past the halfway point of my chapter reviews, we're going to dive in here to Chapter 6. This is kind of a brief chapter, and so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but this one is talking about student processes data. And essentially what this is talking about is the processes that we use to gather data, and it's really kind of things that we can control. You know, and the book talks about how we can't control where students come from. You know, we can't control how they learn, but we use different processes to inhibit and help their learning and to guide their learning. And these are things that we may do out of habit. These are things that we put into place. You know, some teachers at an elementary setting, for example, do callbacks out of habit. I know they've seen them somewhere, but they do them, and they should get students' attention. One thing that we do, and this is an obvious process to gather data, we do cooperative learning here. And cooperative learning, if you've been in education long enough, you know that Kagan is at the forefront of that. He does workshops across the country. And a big deal with that, we use cooperative learning to ensure student engagement. And that ensures us to collect quality data. I mean, that's the whole point of it. We're getting kids engaged. We can almost guarantee engagement. And when we can guarantee engagement, obviously we know that the data that we're gathering from whatever activity that may be doing, from whatever educational function that is, when we're using cooperative learning, the data that we're getting from that is very qualitative. We know that we're getting reliable data that we can use, and that could be reliable data that the kid's not doing well, or that he is doing fantastic, or she, but we know we're getting quality data from that. And essentially that's what school processes are. It's just different things we do, things like, you know, tutoring, any kind of services that we have, service learning, special education, all sorts of different things that we can put into place for kids to be successful and thrive in our schools. And we do that a variety of different ways, integrating technology in the classroom. It's been a big one. That is a huge school processes data. It's just things that we do in schools to gather information, policies that we put into place, things we may do out of habit, things that our administrators kind of put into place for us. The school processes data is very simple, but a very reliable and very important part of data collection here in education. The final chapter that we dive into is Chapter 7, and it talks about just making sure that we look across all of the data. And simply put, what that means is that we may have a main goal or something that we're trying to reach. So for example, maybe your building's school improvement plan, or your BSIP may be to improve student engagement. Well, there's several different ways that we can do that, and you want to look across all the data that you can gather from all different areas to ensure that you're trying to reach that goal. So for example, you're looking at maybe demographic data. What kind of kids do you have? Age groups, socioeconomic backgrounds, and not just looking at, okay, this is what race they are, this is where they come from, but you're also asking questions, how many kids do I have in my class that are free and reduced? Does it affect their learning? Are they up late? Are their parents not home at night? There's all sorts of different things you can look at, and you can find out this data through those questionnaires we talked about in previous chapters. You're looking at, the perceptual data, student learning data, how they learn best. If we want to improve engagement, we talked about cooperative learning. And then the last one, we also have things as ELL, where kids, English is a second language, or ESL. and where kids who don't come from an English-speaking background can learn. Are we improving their engagement in the classroom because we're getting them the services they need outside? We're giving them one of those school processes data that they can use. Special education, things like that, to ensure engagement in our regular ed classroom. We're trying to give them everything that we can do through training our teachers, by giving them the data they need, by them getting the data they need themselves, by giving those assessments that we talked about in Chapter 5, post-assessment, seeing where their kids are, so they can keep improving upon that. And so Chapter 7 is simply put, just making sure that you look at all of the data that you have gathered to make an informed decision on how to improve or how to go forwards and whatever it is that you're working towards. Because all the data that you gather, the more data you gather that's meaningful. Obviously, just because you can throw numbers on a paper doesn't mean it's meaningful, can help you make a decision. But the more meaningful data, the more quality data you can gather, the more informed decision you can make, or the more coerced thing that you can do best for your platform, whatever that may be, whether that's commercial, corporate, or here in our educational setting, to help whatever it is move forward, to help move the students forward in our case. So just making sure that you look across all the data. You're going to run into some challenges. There are going to be things that are strengths across it. Such as, well, we know that we have a high engagement level, so we may already be close to meeting that goal. Okay, if we have our strengths, what are still our challenges in meeting engagement across the building? What are our challenges? Is it behavior? Is it the time of day? Is it the lesson quality? Is it our instructional strategies that we're using? There's several different things that you can look at, and data to back all of that up is meaningful in helping you make an informed decision to help reach that goal and to better train our teachers and our staff to help our students get there. So, as a whole, that was chapter reviews of 4, 5, 6, and 7. Again, this is not a course requirement, but I wanted to send this out to help us save a little bit of time in the class and to give us kind of a jumping off point for discussion later.